Hey guys, thanks so much for clicking into the webinar. My name is Jas Takhar and I'm one of the managing partners here at REC. We've been bringing exclusive investment opportunities to the Keyspire membership for almost about 3 years now. And the one that we're going to be talking about today is a student housing investment opportunity that's licensed and regulated. The reason we're so excited about this opportunity is because it's fully managed for you. There's no cost for the management for the first 2 years. There's actually a rental guarantee attached to this investment. And after all your monthly expenses, you're seeing a positive net cash flow of over $600 a month. You just don't see that anymore in Southern Ontario, even in the country. And so this specific investment opportunity is in the Kitchener-Waterloo area, which is essentially a 5-minute walk to both universities, University of Waterloo, as well as Laurier University. For the next 20 minutes or so, you're gonna have a live listen in to all the team members that are gonna be involved in the transaction. We're gonna be hearing from Kyle Hampson, who's the lawyer at Miller Thomson. A lot of you have met him in the past. And he's gonna be talking about making sure that we dot all the I's and cross all the T's. We're gonna be hearing from Stef Edwards, who's the mortgage specialist at RBC, talking about all things financing. You're also gonna be hearing from Jaque, who's the director at Milborne Sales. And we're gonna be talking about a high-level discussion on what's happening in the Kitchener-Waterloo area. At the end of that discussion, I'm gonna be going through the 4 ways to win and a detailed description of how we get to that $600 a month positive cash flow. At any time during the webinar, feel free to give me a call directly at 416-999-8850 or email myself and my team at info@reccanada.com. I look forward to speaking to you and have yourself a great day. Take care now. So Charles, I'm going to start with you and talk kind of high level about student housing investments. We get a lot of questions about, why is it that some are scared to invest into student housing? What's your thoughts about that?
People think of students and they think of, what's that movie, Animal House?
Yeah.
With Belushi, right?
Yeah.
So it's really interesting that once you dive into who are the big players in the student housing market, you find that they're institutional investors. A lot of them are big investors like Oxford Properties, the Canada Pension Plan Investment Board, and they're heavily invested into student housing the same way that they're heavily invested into retirement residences, because you know that the baby boom generation is peaking. You know that there's a guaranteed wave of demand that's coming, and with student housing, post-secondary enrollments just continues to increase across the board, and so there's this guaranteed demand, and that's what they like.
You and I've always talked about this, right? It's probably the most recession-proof type of investment, unless parents stop sending their kids to school. We know there's going to be a good flow of tenants always coming in.
100%. I think that's a perfect way to say that it is recession-proof, because, if people aren't able to find, employment at the level or the field that they want, what do? They go back to school.
That's right.
There's also a great advantage when it comes to raising rents. As you know, the Residential Tenancies Act here in Ontario, if you have long-term tenants, you can only increase the rents per the guidelines. When you have new tenants coming in every year, you can up those rents to new market levels almost on an annual basis.
It's so important that you mentioned that, Kyle. A lot of my personal business that I do with clients, we do a lot of pre-construction condos, and in downtown Toronto specifically. And the one thing that you want to consider when you're investing into condos from a pre-construction perspective is that you're not able to increase the rents if the tenant wants to stay. We know that with student housing, they're going to leave. And sometimes it's after year 2 or year 3, just because they want to be living in a different place, or they're getting with other friends.
They've graduated.
Yep. And to increase the rent, and I think you mentioned as well, Charles, that we're seeing increases in rents already in certain areas for rents.
We work with a number of developers who have very large portfolios across Ontario. And in Waterloo, the rents across the board with a number of different developers are going up by 10% next year.
So now specifically talking about Kitchener-Waterloo, we have two universities, obviously Laurier University and University of Waterloo. What type of students for our out of province listeners? And please, Kyle and Steph, pipe in, because I know you guys really know the area as well.
Well, I went to school at Laurier.
You went to school at Laurier?
Yeah.
My wife went to school at Laurier. It's a point of contention. We're okay.
And Charles, you're on the streets at all times in KW area. What type of students go to both of these schools?
Well, I think a good way to answer that question is to point out a few of the programs that are really popular there, because they're some of the best in the country, and they actually have some world-class programs. So the computer science and engineering program's number 23 in the world, which is huge, because that's actually in turn attracting a lot of companies focusing on technology that are moving in and next to the campuses. And there's a whole discussion we can have about what that's doing to the economy and how that's further attracting more students, because they want to graduate from school and go to work at Google down the street or Shopify. Google's hiring at $150,000 plus signing bonus right now, plus benefits, and you get flown to California for your orientation. So it's a good incentive for students to be competing to go to University of Waterloo. Mm-hmm. Wilfrid Laurier has an amazing business school, one of the top business schools in the country. They also have one of the best math programs as well, and the co-op program at both of those schools is unparalleled. They have a great engineering program.
They've also got the dual degree, which is a math accounting, so you can come out of it with CMAs, and their post-grad program, at both schools is unbelievable. And the nice thing about Waterloo is, again, to Charles's point, is, you've got Google. Google built the second largest office in North America in Waterloo, right?
And if you don't believe us, just Google it. You'll figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. It's right there. There's a pharmacy school downtown. OpenText is there, like Shopify, like Charles said. They have also just completed a light rail transit system that runs the whole corridor that can, it is like the state of an art, 500,000 people.
Right.
And it's like a little mini Mountain View, California. You have 4 major insurance companies there. You have Sun Life, you've got Manulife, you've got Equitable, and you've got Economical, all in Kitchener-Waterloo.
And there's a condo boom happening in Kitchener, just down the street, because of all these businesses. You've got Gowlings that's building a new law firm right downtown, Kitchener as well. There's a whole boom that's coming off of these schools. And you mentioned California, Silicon Valley really got started because of Stanford University and the smart people that were coming out of Stanford. And that really shapes the surrounding area around any major university. Stanford is only 18,000 students. We've got 50, 60,000 students.
Between the two schools?
Between the two schools. You've also got Conestoga College down the way, which is also expanding. All the schools are expanding. And so you mentioned the LRT as well, Steph. So we're seeing investments across the board from the government. We're seeing investments from big corporations and businesses that are moving into the area, that are investing back into the universities again. Like Lazaridis Business School is Lazaridis from BlackBerry, right? From RIM.
AKA RIM.
AKA RIM.
For our younger listeners, BlackBerry was the phone, what is it, about a decade ago now?
That's right.
It was the best thing since Nokia.
That's right.
Little snake game that you had, that was kind of cool.
So then you also have governments making huge investments. If you look at the size of the city of Mississauga, which is what now, 800,000, right? You look at North York, you look at Markham, you look at Brampton. None of these cities have light rail transits, but Waterloo does. And Waterloo is 530,000, when you combine Kitchener and Waterloo and Cambridge. So meanwhile, you have this huge government infrastructure funding project that's done. We're just waiting for the trains from Bombardier to get shipped in. They're going to start running any day now. And they connect the university all the way to downtown Kitchener. They connect to the GO train, which goes straight to Toronto. So we're an hour away commute, but on the GO train, they're going to be doing an express train ride. The previous Ontario government had announced the first high-speed rail line connecting Waterloo to Toronto, the first high-speed rail line in North America that would travel over 400 kilometers an hour. And
does that bring you into Toronto for in 40 minutes or something? It'd be the time that they're quoting, right?
15. Well, if you're traveling at 400 kilometers an hour, it'd be 20 minutes.
25 minutes.
You stop at Pearson Airport and then Union Station. So you're a couple stops away from Toronto.
The specific building we're speaking about is 253 Leicester Street, which is a 5 to 6 minute walk to both of the universities. When it comes to location, the closest place to the universities get rented out first. Because I know, Charles, you'll make mention about, I think it's about 30 to 35% of the students are foreign students.
That's right.
Right? And so the reason that's important is that when they're looking at places to live, when going to those two universities, they want to be close as possible from a walking distance perspective. Does that make sense?
My sister-in-law works at the University of Waterloo. She works for one of the colleges there. And one of her jobs is to deal with the influx of foreign students who come in during the summer, and they also come in during certain holiday times of years. And that's their first choice, right, is to stay in an institutional place that's on campus, right? She works at Renison College, okay? I agree with you. The next step is somewhere that's close proximity, might even actually be closer than one of the colleges.
Right. And so it's a great point that you brought up, because the tenants that are moving into this building and the buildings next to it are second year, third year, fourth year students, right? So they've done exactly what your sister-in-law helps out with, and then they go look to, what's the next best place to live? I don't want to be living in the dorms. I want to go right outside. And definitely, as you guys can see on the map, Leicester Street is the spot to be at.
You're at Center Ice.
I love, you said this to me before, right? I'm a sports guy, so I love that analogy. You're right at Center Ice. And so in terms of location, can't really beat it. Now, when we're speaking about the layouts of these units, it's 5 bedrooms. So essentially picture a 1,300 to 1,350 square foot unit. There are 5 bedrooms, 2 washrooms. Okay, each bedroom is being rented for about $670 a month, and which totals up to a little under $3,400 a month. Property management as an incentive right now, property management for the first 2 years is free, as well as you have a 2-year rental guarantee. So for some reason, if there is one room that's not rented, you don't have to worry about it as an investor, because there's a guarantee that's being offered to you as an insider and as a Keyspire member right now, that you have a tenant no matter what in all beds. Okay?
Yeah, and that's for peace of mind, but you mentioned that this group knows a thing or two about managing these types of properties. When you look at their entire portfolio going back, they've never had vacancies. Like the vacancy rate in Toronto is 0.4%, which is extremely low. Extremely low. Downtown Toronto, it's one of the most popular cities in the world right now. So the vacancy rate or the occupancy rate, let's say in Waterloo across this portfolio, it's 99.98%. So that's like 0.02%.
Well, I love the fact that the building's been built for now about 8.5, 9 years, because we have these numbers. These are real numbers. We know that the vacancy rate is very low. But on top of it, we still get the 2-year rental guarantee, right? So it's just nice peace of mind.
Yeah.
I want to speak a little bit about the management, because that really scares a lot of people when they're thinking about investing into student housing. Jas, I don't want to get that call at 4 o'clock in the morning that, there's a couple of people fighting each other or the toilets are broken. Here, what we've been able to do is actually partner up with the biggest property management firm in the area, KW for Rent.
In the country.
They manage approximately 4,400 doors.
Yeah.
And their sister company, Accommodate For You, how many doors do they manage now, Charles?
So between the two of them, so Accommodate You is their higher end, like smaller suite brand, and KW for Rent is like the first one that they ever built, because they've been in the industry for years, right? So they ended up building 2 brands, their sister companies, but it's the same umbrella company.
Okay.
So in total, it's just over 4,000 beds that they're both managing.
So they know 1 or 2 things about managing.
That's
in
right.
terms of when it specifically comes to student housing.
Yeah.
Stef, you mentioned lenders and financing. Obviously, you're the lead person, and a lot of our listeners and viewers are going to be speaking with you. what should they know when it comes to financing? We know approximately you're looking at about $130,000 cash required to close. In terms of interest rates and amortization, give us an idea of what our guys can come to expect when it comes to rates and terms.
Okay, so basically all of these buildings, we're going to finance them at an 80% loan to value. So as Jas said, you're looking at 20% of the purchase price. So historically, on the other projects we've done, it works out to be about $114,000 to $112,000 plus closing costs. That money can be taken from a secured line of credit, or obviously can come from cash investments and savings. So technically, if you're taking it from a secured line of credit secured by your home, you're kind of doing 100% financing, which technically it is allowable, right?
And you've seen it. Right, you've seen investors actually do this, which is amazing in terms of if they're taking it from their down payment from a line of credit, it's 100% financing. The return is infinite at this time, right? Because it's none of their own money that they're using.
Exactly. So, I mean, for some investors, you may have a lot of equity built up in your home, and that's great, to be mortgage free or not to have a mortgage or a large mortgage, and that's great. But the thing is, if you think about it, that capital isn't really working for you. So I always caution that everybody, I'm not saying that people should leverage themselves up like 100% or, but you should leverage yourself to a point where you feel comfortable, leveraging some of your existing real estate. So anyway, I got off topic a little bit there, but
no, I think it's very important that you made mention of that.
Yeah, most people think they have to have cash in the bank, and that's not, not true.
Not everyone who's listening and watching has invested before or even ever heard of an investment conversation. So I think it's very important because I know my parents grew up thinking that you put all your money in the bank and you leave it there and refinance your mortgage. They didn't even understand it. Till this day, my father still fights me on it. He thinks, no, you pay off your mortgage as fast as you can and that's it. Never refinance and pull out money. So I think that's very important. So continue on about the process of financing. Yeah, so basically, whether individuals are self-employed or, whether, you're working with a salaried position, we're, going to look at your whole financial picture, what you owe, versus what you own. So we take sort of a whole net worth into play. Obviously, your credit is a big factor. I would caution those listeners that listen to this and they're self-employed and they try to be really aggressive with your tax returns and not pay taxes. I would say that you want to be a bit careful because with the lending guidelines and the new stress testing, you are disadvantaging yourself by, saying, oh, that's great, you made $30,000 a year, but try to borrow money, from any lending institution, regardless of whether it's a scheduled bank. And then like historically, the one thing, and we had chatted about this a little bit before, is I just want to talk a little bit about interest rates because it's the one thing that everybody loves to talk about. Sure.
They love to talk about interest rates and where they're going and, kind of that doom and gloom and rates are go up. But I just want to say that historically speaking, rates are still very, very low. And, some of the listeners, some of us even in this room, probably don't remember, but our parents remember when interest rates, in the mid-'80s, were 19, 21%. The highest residential mortgage rate was 21.86%. So rates obviously aren't anywhere close to that, and we have just come off a 54-year period of historically low mortgage rates. So yes, last summer we were on the beautiful, people were getting 5-year fixed at 2.5%, and that's great.
I still have that.
Yeah,
you walked in for 5
more years.
A couple more years. So it's so really now when we're looking at fixed rates, we're kind of getting closer to that 3.5% and under 4%. But what you have to remember that is even in 2006, rates were 1.5% higher. There were 5-year mortgage rates that were fixed rates that were in the high 4s and the low 5%. And the average 5-year fixed, if you look at, the last 54 period, has been closer to 5%. So we're still in a historically low period of interest rates. So, when you look at leveraging, your real estate, and money is still very, very inexpensive, right? So again, I'm not promoting that people, leverage themselves up, and I'm just saying that if you put it in perspective historically, what does real estate appreciate at? What's your return on the investment based on what your down payment is? So when you start adding that all together, and if you're getting, a cap rate, or you're getting an ROE of 8 or 9 or 10%, and you think, well, I'm borrowing money at 3.5, if you do the simple subtraction, it still sounds pretty good.
You're still winning.
You're
still winning.
And, I personally, I am an investor in real estate. I've owned student housing in Kitchener-Waterloo. I own investments. So, I do believe in it. And I am very passionate about it because I think it's a good way for people to diversify their portfolio, invest in the market. And you want to invest in the stock market, make your contributions. But at the same time, also look historically at what real estate has done as well.
For sure. We always say don't keep all your eggs in one basket. Again, with interest rates, we're probably, because I know people are listening and watching saying, well, what's my rate going to be? Again, every situation's different. Is it safe to say for a 3-year it'll range from 3.5 to 3.7 kind of percent? Okay, so I just want to make sure that's the range that we're going to be working into, keeping in mind every situation is different.
And then one more thing I want to mention too is that on investor mortgages, I'm working for the big blue bank. There are some banks that for investor mortgages will charge you a premium on the interest rate when they know it's an investor mortgage, and that's a practice that's very customary in the United States. The other thing is they will also restrict your loan to value, so meaning you have to put more money down, and they will not allow you to do a longer amortization. So we'll let you go up to 30-year amortization on these properties.
Which is very important because you'll be able to see a little bit more monthly cash flow because your payment's going to be less at the end of the day.
Exactly. And less interest, right? Like you're going to pay more interest, but it's also great, because you're going to be claiming that, on your tax return as well.
Charles, did you want to add something? Because you're on the streets here at Kitchener-Waterloo and been dealing with a lot of our investors when it's come to this investment opportunity.
This is a really special opportunity to own for less and to rent for more. Like a lot of people talk about buy low, sell high. So, we talked a little bit about the economy, about how the government's investing, big corporations are investing and moving in next to the campuses, and that changes the city and that changes the real estate property values. And so you'll see built-in appreciation there, which is always something to look for. But to be able to buy low and rent high is very unique.
Right, you don't see that often.
You don't see that often. And if you are looking for cash flow positive opportunities to invest in real estate, they are nearly impossible to find. And if you do find them, they usually involve some kind of major hands-on renovation or involvement. And in this case, we have a cash flow positive opportunity that is totally hands-free.
I want to bring you into the conversation right now, Kyle, because you've looked over the documents. As an investor, first-time investor, what are you looking for from the lawyer's perspective when you're going through the documents? Agreement of purchase and sale, as well as the condo documents.
So for a standard new build, one of the things we check for is the Tarion, documents and schedules attached to it, and what costs they're going to pass along to you through Tarion.
Right.
When a building's been built for this long, all of a sudden Tarion isn't applicable anymore.
Right.
Okay, so you're not getting the standard warranties that you would get with a new build in terms of the structural components and any deficiencies, and that's because this is a convert. Okay, so that would have been the first thing that we look for. The next thing that we look for is purchase price adjustments. Right, we want to be able to tell you when you're looking at these documents during your 10-day rescission period, okay, you've agreed on this purchase price. Okay, if you're renting it, you got to understand that there's not an HST deduction. You now have to pay HST on this,
which doesn't apply to these ones either because it's a convert.
Exactly. So we don't have to worry about that. Okay. With that, now we look at what costs are they passing along to you. Okay. They're passing along a lot of the costs that you would typically pay with a new build, anyways. The good thing is that there shouldn't be any development charge. Differences which could cause a really large adjustment that you might see with a long-term new build in an area like Toronto or KW or Hamilton or something like that. They're really standard in terms of, minor fees here and there for the real estate levy surcharge, the Law Society fee that they have to pay for this. If you throw them an NSF check, you're going to get dinged for that as well. So the adjustments on this are actually really low. Okay, you could be looking at probably less than $1,500. I'd be shocked if it was more than that.
Right.
Okay, so that gives you a benefit when you're working with your mortgage broker, because now you guys aren't guessing what the final cost is going to be. How much of the mortgage do you want to get on this property versus how much money you need to come up with on closing. So there's a little bit more cost certainty there. The next thing we want to look for is what are your roles and responsibilities as a condo unit owner. Right? We don't have a typical restriction on tenancy in here because we all understand that this is student housing.
And it's regulated and licensed as a student housing building.
Exactly.
Yeah, but you might want to mention that there are no restrictive covenants in the condo documents that say that it specifically has to be rented to students.
Yep, that's very true. It's just open and vague.
Yeah,
right?
So that's one thing that sometimes lenders have issues with, is when you have a lot of restrictive covenants. So with these types of buildings, there's not like, I could live there if I wanted to, or Charles could, or you could, anybody could move in and
I kind of wish I was a student again and I was able to live in Keyspire.
I think that will go well
I don't think you do.
Yeah, different topic, different day. Continue, Kyle.
Okay, and then so when we get to what are your roles and obligations, what are your repair and maintenance obligations? Where does the unit end for you as a unit owner, right? So what does your insurance have to cover? What systems within the unit are you responsible for? One thing, we'll provide you the draft budget that they've given to us.
Right.
We're not financial advisors. We don't really comment on it. You're going to have to do your own due diligence on that.
Right.
We can tell you that, at least the project that I saw last time, it looked like a standard budget that you'd see for a new build condominium.
Well, essentially that budget is covering like what repairs might need to be done coming up, like in terms of, is there anything like, do they need to change the furnace in the building? These are all done through third-party auditors, and obviously the other buildings that we've looked at, it's all checked off there.
One thing we can speculate towards is that because they've been running this property for so long, you'd like to think they have a good handle on what was the fair common expense assessment.
Right.
With a lot of new builds, you can have a situation where some builders will drastically underestimate what that is to make it attractive for new home buyers. And then they'll have them jump in the first year after the board's turned over to the unit owners.
That is a super important point, because a lot of your investors, we're looking at the mortgage payment, principal, interest, taxes, we're looking at the cash flow, or we're looking at a break-even point. And one of the big restrictions, and again, pointing to the fact that you can have a tenant that turns over more frequently than when you do a traditional investment, is that, if you do have a new build and all of a sudden, the developer said, the condo fees are going to be, 35 cents a square foot, all of a sudden now they're 60 cents a square foot. Well, you can't increase your rent, more than the allotted legislation, right? So you can't all of a sudden incorporate that increase. Whereas, again, with this building, it's already established. I've been financing them for years. We know what the condo fees are. We know how they run their buildings. And you don't have to worry about that big increase in an actual condo fee.
There's no surprises.
Well, that's what probably excited us the most about this project, aside from the significant net cash flow that investors are seeing, was the fact that we're not guessing. There's no guessing here. It's we know that the building's been around for 8.5 years. We know what the vacancy rates have been. We can calculate all of our closing costs. Again, coming from somebody who does a lot of pre-construction investing and helping investors do that, we're not guessing. It's just so nice to know exactly what we're getting into. You cannot get more of a turnkey investment than what's being offered right now, along with the fact that the process of buying this investment opportunity is also very turnkey. You'll be speaking with myself and my team at REC. We will make the agreement of purchase and sale conditional. We do it right up to 45 calendar days, which allows Stef and Kyle to go through the documents with you, get the financing, as well as set up the insurance that's needed. Nothing has to be rushed throughout this process. We essentially have 45 calendar days to dot all the I's, cross all the T's. Guys, thank you so much for joining me and my team today. Really appreciate it. Charles, thank you to you.
Thanks, Jas.
Kyle, thank you to you.
Thank you.
Steph, to you. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, guys. Okay, Jas back here. Hope you enjoyed the live listening to the team. I wanted to now go through the 4 ways to win for this opportunity. So the address of the property is 253 Leicester Street. It is a 5-bedroom layout. So again, essentially think about it as a 1,300 to 1,350 square foot condo. The purchase price is $573,880. Most of the units are actually less than that. So we took one of the highest price units because when we look at something that's priced a little bit lower, the numbers even are better. So I'm going to go through it again at any time, guys. If you have any questions, give me a call directly, 416-999-8850, or email us at info@reccanada.com. So again, it's 5 bedrooms. The total rental income is $3,350. We take out property tax of $245 a month. This is a condo, so there is a condo fee. And for our friends in the West, we have, you'll know them as strata fees. That is at $372 a month. We have a total net operating income of $2,687 a month. We still need to take out our mortgage payment. So if I just scroll down here, our mortgage payment works out to be based on 20% down, which is $114,000 down payment. You have a mortgage amount of a little under $460,000. Interest rate approximately at 3.6%, amortized over 30 years. Your monthly mortgage payment is $2,080. That leaves you with $607 a month net monthly cash flow. So again, after all your expenses, your property tax, your monthly maintenance fees or strata fees, your mortgage payment, as well as any insurance that's needed and that's the home insurance of $46 a month that you'll be dealing with BrokerLink, which is part of the Keyspire community as well. And that's already set up for you at $46 a month. All that, taking that all out of your monthly rent, you're looking at, again, $607 a month positive cash flow. I did want to take the time here to go through the total cash required to close. And so you have $114,000, which is your down payment, $500 for an inspection that we strongly recommend, only because there's always small little things with these units that need to be fixed, and we'll make sure all that gets taken care of before closing. We have land transfer tax in the province of Ontario for this property. It's based on the purchase price. It's a little under $8,000. And legal fees are approximately $1,800. So the total cash required to close is $125,000. Now, let's look at the 4 ways to win. So on a yearly basis, we have $7,281 in cash flow, positive cash flow. Principal recapture, as we know what that means, is how much of my principal is being paid down for the year. That's a little over $8,700 for the year. Passive appreciation, we've taken 5% year over year. So for the first year, you're looking at a little over $28,000. We've been seeing closer to about 7 to 7.1% passive appreciation in the Kitchener-Waterloo area, but we like to be ultra conservative. And so we, again, use 5%. So a total year 1 ROI on this property is over 35%. Yes, you heard that properly. It's over 35% total year 1 ROI. So again, guys, at any time, please feel free to give us a shout, 416-999-8850, or email us at info@reccanada.com. I hope you found this webinar valuable and hope to see you soon. Take care now.